Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Just gonna wait for folks to file in here and then we'll get going. To be clear, this webinar is geared towards U9 and U10 teams. So coaches, managers, club representatives playing in the TCSL league this fall. All right, just as a way of background, we did these webinars for the first time last summer. We got good feedback on them, and because of that, we're going to do them once again. So instead of getting emails from us, this is an opportunity to hear firsthand from us what's to come as far as the fall season goes, and then also the opportunity to ask questions along the way. We have the chat open, so feel free to use that, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. We're also recording this webinar, so there'll be an opportunity to rewatch it. But ultimately, we're trying to provide an outlet to get you as much information as possible leading into the fall season that's almost upon us. Just a couple of introductions. I'm Matt Tiano. I'm the CEO of TCSL. And then Dawn, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dawn Ellard, and I'm the Club Development Coordinator with TCSL.
Yeah, so we're a team of two. We take a no job too small approach, but ultimately we're here to serve you and we're here to serve the game. Overall, our league is predicated on the concept that you shouldn't have to travel very far to play a meaningful soccer game. So when we form divisions, we meet with all the club leaders to put together what hopefully is the very best league possible based on level of play, but almost more importantly, especially at these younger ages, geography. So the leagues that you're going to see in terms of who you play is ultimately a result of us working collaboratively with our member clubs to put together the divisions, who you play, and that sort of thing. So arguably more important than any other age group, these young players are obviously they're new to soccer for the first time likely, or they've had one season under their belt, and therefore we want the culture at these matches to be a very positive one. I do have a chat here. FYI, the chat window is disabled, but this Q&A window is available. I assume you want us to post questions here. That's a good question. Let me see if I can enable the chat really quick. If that's a setting somewhere else. Yeah, so use the Q&A for now if you have a question along the way. But back to the culture, we want these players to continue playing, and much of that's dependent on the environment that they're ultimately playing in. Coaches, we ask that you please set the tone and own the environment of the match. Before every match, we feel like it would be a wise idea to meet with the opposing coach, the referee, and cover the rules and expectations for the match. The referee at these young ages is also probably going to be very young. So again, it's probably a good idea to get on the same page, and it's also an opportunity for the referee to feel welcome in that environment as well. Really quick on rules, because these are different than once these players reach U11. There's a build out line present. There is no punting, and all kicks are indirect. Those three items would be good to cover with the referee prior to the match. There may be a case of a referee not being available for the match. Everybody's aware of the referee situation. The game should be played and facilitated by coaches, especially at U9 and U10. Play the game. Yeah, that's all I'll say on that. Play the game, please. The scores, they're not reported. These are developmental ages. One note on score reporting, even though the scores aren't public, like if you go to the TCSL website, you won't be able to find scores for particular matches. We do want scores reported so that we can track, competitiveness within certain divisions so that we can make improvements in future seasons. So we do want the scores, they're just not public. If you don't have a referee assigned for a particular game, and we ask that we're going to ask our clubs to make sure that's communicated in advance that the game is played. If there is no ref, is it still considered a game or is it a scrimmage? That's a question that just came in. It's considered a game because there's no scores reported anyway. There's no advancement. We're not keeping standings. The game should be played, facilitated by coaches in the event that there is not a referee. Okay. Just really quick, I mentioned a build outline. So this blue area here is what is called a build outline. Okay, there's one on each side in between the halfway line and the end line. And what that build outline does is it encourages playing out of the back. Okay, so using the goalkeeper, using the back line to play out of the back. That's a U.S. soccer mandate that all U9 and U10 games have this so-called build outline. Okay, it can be marked via cones. Some fields will have it marked. Okay, but coaches should be prepared to put cones out, help the referee through the process, have that meeting so that everybody's on the same page. Okay. Really quickly, relative to requirements to be a team staff member, and that could be a team manager or a team coach. We cannot emphasize enough that you must have successfully completed a U.S. Club Soccer background check and completed Safe Sport. It's not limited to just coaches. All people in a position of authority, is how it's defined, managers included, must complete these requirements. Okay. If you haven't been guided by your club yet in terms of what this means and what needs to happen, I would imagine that you will be made aware shortly. Okay, relative to schedules, and I know that's top of mind now, obviously. We've moved to a new scheduling model in terms of how we are building the schedule. Previous to this fall, believe it or not, we've written the schedule by hand. But as we've grown and as we've experienced several reschedule windows where many, many games are rescheduled, we feel like there's a better opportunity to take into account more data to build a better schedule on the front end. What does that mean? You might be a part of a team whose coach coaches two other teams. So we take that type of thing into account. We take into account the home club and how many games they can fit on a particular night. We take into account club blackout dates. We take into account team blackout dates. We take into account how many days in between matches, ultimately with the goal of producing a optimized schedule. Okay? So that's what we're working on right now. is producing for 934 fall teams the very best schedule that we can possibly create. Okay. I'm going to get to a couple questions. Don's typing an answer on the second relative to safe sport. I'm going to get one from Eric. It is my understanding that in U9, if a player is fouled inside the box, the penalty kick is moved back outside the box and an indirect free kick happens there. In other words, no PKs in the box. Is that true? That is correct. PK is a direct free kick. All free kicks at U9 and U10 are indirect. And if there is an indirect free kick that a foul that happens inside the penalty area, the ball is moved outside the penalty area and an indirect free kick ensues. Okay, good question. Can you elaborate on the brackets A, B, and C for each league? Are they planned to be equal in level of play, or is bracket A considered a higher level of play? At U9 and U10, we have 3 levels of play. Red is the highest, white is the middle, and blue is the lowest. Okay. Clubs ultimately place their teams in environments that they feel are appropriate, and then they make adjustments from season to season. Okay, so at U9 and U10, it's really about ensuring that the players have a meaningful experience and that they're placed appropriately. So back to the schedule. Schedules will be released by Tuesday, August 23rd. I did put an asterisk on this slide because of the new scheduling optimization that we're going through. We really feel like that's a realistic date, but for your intents and purposes, expect the schedule to come out by August 23rd, likely on that date. Okay. There are 2 places that you'll ultimately access your schedule. The first is via GotSport, which is the platform in which TCSL uses for all league administration, rostering. It'll be how you communicate with opponents if you have to reschedule a game. It's how you report scores. So it's really the TCSL main administrative function, if you will, and that is GotSport. The second is the public website. At U9 and U10, only the schedules will be listed there. There is no standings, like I mentioned before. Christine asked a clarifying question on her question prior. Good question. So in, let's just say U9 white, okay? U9 girls white. You will see bracket A, bracket B, bracket C, bracket D, bracket E. The only thing that means, bracket A, B, C, D, and E, it only means that that's where it ended up. Those brackets that we put together is only based on geography within a division. Okay, so bracket A might be a cluster of clubs from the West. Bracket B might be a cluster of clubs from the East. Bracket C might be the North, etc. So that means absolutely nothing. Don't overthink that by any means. Okay. So what to expect? League play begins August 26th and runs through, that is a typo, October 9th. My gosh. It runs through October 9th. That would be a very quick season. It runs through October 9th. Now, there's an asterisk next to August 26th. Okay. In fact, this is bothering me. I'm going to fix this really quick. Don, is my screen okay?
Yep.
So runs through October 9th. Now, we elected to open up August 26th, 27th, and 28th as an opportunity for clubs that wanted to play early. Most clubs black those out. Okay. Now we're going to release a schedule August 23rd, and you may have a game scheduled for that weekend. That's not ideal. And as a result of the new scheduling platform, and I'll call them growing pains associated with that, there is an opportunity to reschedule. Okay. Or you might say, yeah, we were planning to play, we'll play and go from there. Labor Day is blacked out entirely. And then the season proceeds after Labor Day through October 9th. Okay. Matches may be played Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. However, we've told the schedulers we want to limit Friday night games to one per team. Okay. Just looking at the Q&A really quick. So the website says schedules were released on the 19th and we only have 1 week to reschedule. You were saying the 23rd will be the release date. Well, we still have 1 week to make changes. Yes. So in fact, just a short time prior to this meeting, we updated that. So now it's the 23rd. The schedule will be released, and then the reschedule window will go through October 2nd. So we've extended the reschedule period due to the fact that we're about 3 days later releasing the schedule. Okay. I'm just reading the Q&A here. Okay, answered Christy's question. Can games be rescheduled after October 9th? No. That is the last date of league play, which is a good segue into my last bullet point. A word of caution relative to tournaments, okay? This is one reason why we opened up the early August weekend, to try to get more play dates for clubs to complete their schedules. There are 6 league games over 5 weekends if you don't include the early weekend. Okay, so if you're planning on playing more than one tournament, you're going to have trouble, quite frankly. So just a word of caution, it's tough to fulfill a league schedule, and our expectation of our members is that you do fulfill a league schedule. It's tough to do so if you're planning to play more than one tournament. Yeah, if I misspoke on the reschedules, I meant September 2nd. Okay, so the reschedule window will be when the schedule is released on August 23rd, and that'll go through October 2nd. Okay, I'll pause there for any clarifying questions. Question from Jim. Signing into Gotsport, do I need to purchase a subscription? No, it's a free service. Question from Brian, will there be weeknight games or are they all weekend? They will primarily be all weekend. The only possibility would be a Friday night, and we're limiting those to 1 per team. Okay. I'll keep moving along here. So relative to the reschedule process, August 23rd, when schedules are released, goes through September 2nd. You'll get documentation in terms of how this ultimately will work, but we want to emphasize that all communication should happen within Gottsport, okay, with your opponents. You'll ultimately secure facilities from your home club. You'll submit a final request to TCSL, and then we will approve it and notify all parties from there. Okay. And you don't have to know exactly how this works quite yet. Just know that there is a process by which you will go about rescheduling matches. So just a couple tips relative to the reschedule process. Use the chat feature. We want to document all correspondence. If we need to become involved in trying to, navigate a specific reschedule, we want to be able to see the communication that's happened already. So we please ask that you do that as opposed to going outside of the system to communicate. We can't stress enough, please begin early. If you get your schedule and you're like, we can't play on, September 9th and we have a game, don't wait until September 1st to initiate that communication. It won't get done by the deadline. So please begin early. And then if somebody comes to you and needs to look at a specific game to be rescheduled, we ask that you respond promptly. And within Gottsport, you'll get notifications when somebody responds to a message or somebody sends you a message. Okay. Pause there really quick. Question from Marin is a good one. What are the common reasons why a game would need to be rescheduled? It can really vary. In the past, it's been primarily one of two things: coach conflict. So a coach is coaching two teams and they can't be two places at once, or they're playing in a tournament. We are trying to address on the front end both of those scenarios via the scheduling platform and process that I talked about earlier. Will it be perfect? No. But we're trying to significantly reduce the reschedule volume so that you all don't have to worry about rescheduling games. There will be situations where something comes up and you got to deal with something. We understand that. We're providing an avenue for you to go about it, through an organized process. But it shouldn't be a situation where you have to reschedule all games or anything like that. Okay.
Matt,
Yep.
one thing to clarify.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you explain why we have a hard stop for rescheduled games in the fall? Why, there's a date by which you cannot reschedule past?
Sure, be happy to. Good point. So, believe it or not, the clubs that you all play for have administrators that work very, very hard to, secure fields, secure referees, that there are many things that go into ensuring that a game can be played. Therefore, we need a point where the schedule is final, and that date is going to be September 2nd. So we expect one standard in our league is that if you have to reschedule a league game, that you do so within the window, and then it's done, it's set. And that date, like I said, is September 2nd. Okay. Did I miss anything there, Don?
And then what would be the last day in October they can reschedule a game onto?
October 9th.
Yep. And we can't go beyond that because we have a tournament that's dependent on the results of your league.
Not in nine, not for U9 and U10.
No,
though.
not for 9s and 10s. That's true. But that's when, yeah.
But that's the
when
last
we're
day of
done.
league play, October 9th.
Correct.
Okay. Question for Mike: can you play 2 games on the same weekend? Yes. In many cases, you will. The way we have set up the schedule is it's a preference to play only 1 on a weekend, but given the limited number of weekends and needing to get 6 games in, it's very likely and will be the norm that some weekends you have 2 games. Okay. I am going to go back really quick. Jeff has asked a question about clarifying offside at U9 and U10. Okay, I'm going to go back to my diagram here. Okay, so offside is in effect for U9 and U10. Okay, now in practice, remember, we have 1 referee. They very likely, in fact, I will say they will not have assistant referees who would generally be accountable for offside. So I'm going to explain what it should be, but my disclaimer is it might not end up being that way. Okay. The intent, and of course, this is something that U.S. Soccer didn't necessarily think through, but that's a different story. The intent of having offside at U9 and U10 is that it's only in effect build out line and beyond. Okay. So in between the blue line and midfield, offside is not in effect. Okay. That's how it's supposed to be. That is what the rule is. My disclaimer is it probably won't happen that way. The referees generally doing U9 and U10 games are younger, okay? And they will not have the luxury generally of having assistant referees. Okay, but that's how it's supposed to work. Okay. Just going back here. If we prefer to get multiple games in one weekend, is there a way to address that on the front end? Possibly during the data collection process, but we're pretty far gone. There was a deadline in which clubs submitted preferences earlier. So it's very likely that you will have multiple games in one weekend. Okay. This is just a really quick screen grab of the GotSport system and how you communicate through it. Okay. How many games are we looking at for the fall season? Every team plays 6 games. 3 home, 3 away. Okay. Relative to GotSport, this is where you'll do your rostering. Okay. So you'll bring to the field a printed roster. Okay. And you'll set your roster in GotSport. Don't worry about how at this point. We'll provide that documentation step by step so you know how to do it. Okay. So just really quick, our office is committed to the referee issue in our state. Going into next year's certification cycle, we are committed to doing everything we can to help our clubs drive the referee numbers in the right direction. Ultimately, there are more children playing and there are more games than there ever have been. Okay. Which impacts the overall referee pool. As I mentioned before, if a U9 or U10 game does not have a referee, the match should be played facilitated by coaches. I'm a fan of this graphic. I think it puts it in perspective. Please help us set a positive culture at each and every one of your matches. We ask that you consider being a part of the referee pool going into next year. We'll be hosting a variety of sessions about how to become a referee, hosting certification courses. We would love to have you. That cycle will begin after the fall season. So just quickly on game day, what needs to be brought to the field? You will need a photo roster printed from GotSport. All adults must have a printed U.S. Club Soccer pass or card, and they must be on the photo roster. Neither of those can happen until you've met your requirements to be a coach or manager. Okay, background check, safe sport, etc. And then lastly, we ask that if a score is not reported, and if you receive an email from us asking for a score, means it's not updated in our system, that you help us report it. And again, that doesn't go anywhere. It just is an internal record so that we can continue to ensure that leagues remain competitive. Should a match be played if a team doesn't have a full roster show up? Say only 6 kids show up, as an example. The minimum for U9 and U10 is 5 players. So a match should be played if a team has 5 players. By all adults in the photo roster, do you mean all coaches and managers? What adults are you including there? Yes. All staff members. Good clarification. So that would be coaches and managers. Can coaches and managers see the scores, or does that just go to you? You should be able to see scores of matches you play in, I believe, but they don't go anywhere beyond that. Okay. And just an example of what that roster looks like and what the staff credential looks like. This is an example of a coach's pass, and then a manager's pass will be identical minus the word coach. It would say manager instead. One thing we also do is we publish home team kits. You'll notice that pretty much all clubs wear a dark kit at home. Why do we do this? This helps ensure that when you arrive at a match, you know what the teams are going to be wearing so that you can plan accordingly. However, it's always best practice to bring 2 jerseys, 2 tops, in case of a conflict. Okay. But if you're traveling to Lakeville, for example, you know that they're going to be in red. It's very likely that you'll wear white. However, it's best to have both kits with you to ensure there isn't a conflict. We are in the process of updating this graphic, and it'll be shared with you, in the next week or 2. I'm guessing we'll receive more guidance in using GotSport at a later time. Yes. When we release schedules, there will be links to how to do various tasks. The other piece is your club administrator is also a good resource relative to using GotSport. I don't feel like you need to know everything in GotSport tonight. We're just trying to provide an overview of where you're going to be doing things and what types of things you're going to be doing. If the field isn't lined for the build out line rule, what is the most effective process you would like us to follow to make it clear for referees, players, and coaches? I would set the expectation right now that it's likely that most fields are not lined, do not have actual markings for the build out line. The coaches should be prepared to set down a few cones based on that diagram I showed before, but the coaches most definitely should lead that. Okay. Okay, and almost done here. So the Fall Festival is our annual, actually we do it in the summer and the fall, similar format as the summer, where we get registered U9 and U10 teams together in a fun jamboree style festival. T-shirts, there's food trucks, hot cocoa because it's probably going to be cold, and we get the teams together and we match up the teams that they haven't seen in the league, and we create as competitive an event as possible. Okay, so that's going to be on October 15th for the boys and October 16th for the girls. We're going to be in Cottage Grove and or Shakopee. There's a separate registration for that. This event's been very, very popular over the years. We'll probably have anywhere from 120 to 140 teams like we've had in the past. Everybody gets a medal. It's a really fun event where, like I said, you can play teams you haven't seen in the league, and we accommodate coaches' conflicts so that you don't have to worry about that constraint. So just know that we have an event to close the season, October 15th and 16th, boys being on that Saturday, girls on that Sunday, and it's a separate registration. Okay. Pause there for any questions. Okay. Want to close with this slide just in terms of who you should contact for what. So if you need guest players, if you need, if you have questions about team placement, your club director of coaching is generally your first line of defense. Rescheduling field needs could be your club DOC, could be your club admin, okay, depending on your club. If you have a question about Gottsport, generally your club admin is your person to ask that question. If you have a question about the Fall Festival, or you have a question about how to register for a TCSL event, you can certainly come directly to us. If a club DOC or club admin has a question about generally anything, they can certainly come to us. Coach education courses, opportunities, that sort of thing, come to us. But know that there are various people that can help you when you have questions, and if you have questions, and you likely will have questions. Okay. Speaking of questions, I'll pause there for additional questions. As you're thinking of questions, just to reemphasize the timeline, August 23rd, schedule release to teams, at which point you'll get notified from us, at which point the team-to-team reschedule period will begin, at which point you'll receive documentation for how to do that. All reschedules need to be completed by September 2nd. Okay. And the league will ultimately run from that point forward and end on October 9th, minus Labor Day being blacked out, minus any other blackout dates that we've considered. if someone is interested in being a ref, where would we send them for more info? We have a referee page on our website where we've outlined the process by which somebody can become a referee. That would be a great spot to start. If a team only has 5 players in a game, is the recommendation to play 7v5 or 5v5? Our recommendation would be to ensure that you have 7 players present at a game. I'm a little concerned that it's being asked this early. Our recommendation would be that you do everything you can to ensure that there are 7 players at the match. There are ways that your club director or coaching can assist by exploring club pass opportunities, other players from within the club. Generally speaking, player pools at this age group are quite large at clubs. There's probably an opportunity to solve that problem. To get photos for the photo roster, do team managers upload those? Every club's going to have a unique process. Some clubs do it themselves, meaning the administrators, some delegate to managers. You would have to check with your club on that. Will this slide deck be shared? Yeah, our hope is to share both the recording as well as the deck. And our hope would be that we're able to get that out to you tomorrow. Mike has a good question. In season, are reschedules allowed due to weather / lightning or fields being closed for playability, for example? Yes. So that would be the exception to our hard line relative to reschedules. So if there's a weather issue or a field is unplayable due to weather that came in or what have you, that would be an example of a situation where, of course, a reschedule would be permitted. Hey, Don, Christy has a question on tournament sanctioning. Would you be able to type your reply to her?
Sure. Christy, there's some links on the US Club website. That's kind of out of the scope of this. So why don't you send me an email at dawn@tcslsoccer.com and we can have a more in-depth discussion there, but I'll drop the link to the US Club here as well.
How should we handle unacceptable parent behavior on the sidelines? Good question. The first line of defense should be your club. If you feel like it reaches a level that is so unacceptable that you need to report us to us directly, we're open to that. We have a match feedback form on our website. But generally speaking, your first line of defense is your coach and then club leadership. Would we register as a team for the fall festival or should we check with our club admin? Generally speaking, check with your club admin, but I'm guessing they would have you register as a team. Okay, we're going to wrap. Thank you so much for the time. Expect some follow-up from us in terms of the recording as well as the slide deck. We'll get that out to you hopefully tomorrow. Beyond that, look for the schedule on or around August 23rd, at which point the reschedule period begins. That'll end on September 2nd. And we look forward to a really, really good season. Thank you so much.